and not bring them out throughout the city. 8 million people do not want to see detainee and detention centers being come out throughout the community. So if that was their position, we'll be against it. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful summer. God bless you. I hope to see you again.
Everybody else has any question, if you want to readdress the question to another candidate, I will entertain it. Please speak louder. Wow.
And I remind everybody, the speakers get 5 minutes, 5-minute speaker, and you'll hear an alarm go off. That's not a telephone.
Staying in the same councilmember district, we have our choice of Pauls. We're going to go for a Paul no matter. This is Paul Graziano. He is running against Paul Malone, and he has 5 minutes to do an opening statement. And then if you want to come here, you can come here.
I can talk in front of everybody. It's okay. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. It's hard to know where to begin. I'll tell you a little bit, for those who don't know me, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm born and bred in this community. I've lived here my entire life, 46 years. I bought the house next door to my parents on 32nd Avenue. You may have seen my wife and my little 15-month-old running around before the event started. She had to bring him home to put him down. This is what happens when you have tiny little kids. And I am an urban planning and historic preservation consultant. A lot of you in Broadway Flushing and in Station Road know me because I have been helping your organizations for close to 15 years. In fact, with Station Road, I helped to organize Station Road with the folks, some of the folks who are here today. So I have a long history with these neighborhoods, and these are the places that I grew up. They're the places I've lived my entire life. My entire basis of running is similar to the basis that I ran in 2013, which is we need to protect our neighborhoods, and we need to protect them from what is happening today, and what was happening in 2013, and what's been happening for over 20 years, which is serious overdevelopment of our communities. Now, my work that I've done here has helped, which is we rezoned our entire council district, all of the neighborhoods in the council district, and stopped the worst excesses that were happening prior to that. Much of that happened between 2004 and 2010, when now Senator, but then City Councilman Tony Avella was the zoning committee chairman, and I was his planning consultant. So we got a lot of things done with those rezonings. We got a lot of things done with other issues that also deal with these issues. I am concerned because in the 3.5 years that the current councilman has been in office, we have seen a continued increase in illegal conversions and in the destruction of our communities. It is things that need to be done. It's enforcement issues, and it's the basic building blocks of a neighborhood. And if we are not there to protect our neighborhoods, and we are there to talk about our accomplishments, and most of those are just getting the same money that every other council person is getting today, in this particular climate where the speaker is giving the same amount of money to every single council person, more or less, which did not happen in previous administrations. So it's great that we're getting that money, but if I had been elected in 2013, if Chrissy Voskerichian had been elected, or Austin Shaffrin, or John Dwayne, or Dennis Safran, we all would have received pretty much the same amount of money. And to listen to this as if the wheel was reinvented is particularly galling to me, and I'm sure some of the people who are sitting here in the audience. Now, my goal here tonight is to expose a lot of the half-truths and lies that my opponent just told you. And I'm sure some of those questions are actually going to be asked to me as well, or several of them will be. So I'm happy to respond to those. But I urge you to take a look at the actual record of myself and my opponent. One thing that was brought up was legislation. My opponent has the lowest rate of legislation passed of any Queens council member. Less than the Republican, the lone Republican in Queens, Eric Ulrich. Less than Reuben Wills, who's indicted and has stage 4 cancer and does not show up to council meetings very often. So it's amazing to me to listen that basically we're getting all of these things, but we're not. And we were getting those things before. The things that we're getting now, we're getting them. We've continued to get them. We even got them when Dan was in office, before he went to prison. And he was not well liked by a lot of people on the council. So when I listen to this, it gets me pretty upset, and I hope it'll get you upset too, because these are not the things that actually have occurred. One of the things that he brought up was the Rickard-Finley covenant deed restriction, which I will respond to in another question.
Mr. Malone actually got an extra 30 seconds, so I'm going to give it to you as well.
Thank you. I'll just tie that thought up. There was a bill put forth by Senator Avella that all of the civic associations supported, which was to create a flag on the buildings department website, so that if an area has a deed restriction or a house has a deed restriction and it's registered with the city, if someone does not follow that deed restriction, they get a flag and they cannot get a building permit. Paul Vallone put in a bill. The bill was never passed, and it was changed administratively at the Department of Finance, where there is now a box which you have to pay for in order to register your deed to an agency, which is fairly meaningless. It does not stop a builder from getting a permit, and you have to pay for it in order for it to actually take place. So again, he can be very breezy in his discussions, but that is not what happened.
The first question from a member of the audience wants to give you an opportunity to talk about what's motivating your run, and also how you, should you be elected, how you would improve on the working relationships already established by the current council.
Okay, well again, I've been working, I'll answer the second part first. I've been working with elected officials for almost 20 years. Obviously, many of you know my affiliation with State Senator Tony Avella, but beyond that, I have worked with a dozen other council people. Basically, I was known as the go-to person in the city whenever a land use issue came up, whether it was a rezoning or a controversial situation. They would bring me in either as a volunteer or an advisor or even a paid consultant. And that is my strength. Land use issues, in my opinion, inform everything else. If your land use issues, if you have major land use issues in your district and they are not resolved, they will ultimately harm or change the district in ways that no one expected. And that's part of what I've been trying to be proactive in that sense. And what was the first part of the question again?
The first part had to do with why do you want the job?
Why do I want the job? Well, again, interestingly enough, I have personally written or passed more legislation than Paul Vallone has as a volunteer or as a consultant to various elected officials. And I would like to be in a position to help more than I already am. And I've been helping for a long time. So I'd like to be in a position where I am actually in the elected position. And for example, if someone comes forward with a zoning change in my district, I can immediately veto it if I do not like it and the community does not like it. This is the power of the council. The council has a lot of power within the boundaries of their district. So I would like to be the person, instead of me having to ask someone who frankly is connected to the real estate industry and has received more money from the real estate industry than any other person in the council in the last election cycle. I would like to be the person who's defending our communities the way I've been defending them for over 20 years.
The last nice question before we...
The last nice question? Fair enough.
This person wants to know, can you tell the audience what you've done for the Broadway Flushing area and the Station Road area?
Okay, so I'll start ticking some of them off. Obviously, I was the author of the National and State Register nomination to get Broadway Flushing on the National Register of Historic Places, which was to help the area get landmarked. We have not gotten landmarked due to Mr. Vallone and unfortunately due to former Councilman Dan Halloran, who was also not helpful in protecting our neighborhood. I have been a consultant to the Broadway Flushing Homeowners Association several times. The most recent, well, the big one was in 2013 when we stopped the property on 163rd and 35th from illegally subdividing their property. Legal according to the city, illegal according to the deed restrictions. So I have helped them on a lot of deed restriction issues. I have been to countless press conferences about illegal construction. I am essentially called or emailed on a regular basis for consultation for this community. That's just a few things off the top of my head. There are more. Station Road, big ones in Station Road. Again, rezoned their entire community and rezoned our community. And by the way, Councilman Vallone was wrong about one thing. Our community is not R2A, it's R2A and R1-2A. It's both of those areas. Different zoning, different parts of Broadway Flushing. Station Road, same thing. Rezoned their community to protect their neighborhood. Help them enforce their deed restrictions, most recently when Steve Chon, who owns Spa Castle in College Point, bought the reception house with the intention of tearing it down and building a huge commercial building there. We stopped him, me personally, and I found out that he had donated $2,500 to Councilman Vallone 3 weeks earlier, who was going to give him, or was going to help him get a zoning change to build a giant commercial building. That happened 2 years ago. I have helped Station Road currently on a number of issues, illegal conversions, deed restriction issues. Another big one was the Manna Presbyterian Church on 170th and Northern Boulevard. That was a huge fight, and it was the first time that a Korean congregation and a civic organization actually worked together to solve a problem. It was actually an amazing situation. That was about 13 years ago that happened. And everybody, actually, the compromise worked, and everybody was happy. The new building was beautiful, and the community actually worked together. And that's what I want to see in my district. So, as I said, and there's more. There's others. I'm sure there's...
Let's move on to the next question.
The bad questions.
A lot of people wanted to know, and they asked the councilman about landmarking.
Yes.
I'm going to phrase the question this way. We obviously have a Democrat mayor. As you just stated a moment ago, every member of the city council of the city of New York, except for one in Queens.
Three overall.
Three overall. There are 3 Republicans in the city council citywide.
Right.
So you have a Democratic mayor, a Democratic city council, and landmarking hasn't been done. Can you explain that?
Sure. Well, this has been going on for 50 years. This is not anything new. But the problem, there's 2 problems. Even under a Republican mayor, Bloomberg or Giuliani, landmarking wasn't happening. There are several issues. I don't want to get into too much detail right now. I'm happy to talk to people after the meeting about this. The Landmarks Commission is very biased against suburban neighborhoods like ours. They like row houses and apartment buildings. It's not fair. It's wrong. And frankly, there should be legal action taken against them. Unfortunately, the way the law is written is that they are able to decide in a very subjective manner what is considered a landmark and what is not, and much of that is political. Okay, so this is very important to understand. That's issue 1. Issue 2, we as a community have had every elected official support designation. I will give you an example of why Broadway Flushing did not get landmarked under the current councilman. The current councilman has had 3 things come up in front of him. The Ailes House in Bayside, Hawthorne Court in Bayside, which is an apartment complex, and the Douglaston Historic District Extension. These were all recommended actually by me back when Tony Avella was on the council. The Ailes House is the last Bell House. It's right off of Bell Boulevard. The owner of the Ailes House, the owner of Hawthorne Court were both 100% opposed to designation. They were both landmarked by Paul Vallone. It is up to the council member after the Landmarks Commission brings it forward. The council member says yes, all the rest of the council goes with them. The council member says no, and this is on everything, just to let you know. Then everybody else says no. In the Douglaston extension, which I wrote the report for almost 10 years ago, the Landmarks Commission was ready to designate a 19-building extension of the existing Douglas Manor extension. Paul Vallone rejected it. And he stated he did it because landmarking can lower property values, stop people from doing what they want with their homes, and stop you from selling your home. It's amazing. This is on the letter that he sent to the Landmarks Commission. So why did he landmark these other two properties and he rejected the Douglaston district? Well, in the Douglaston district, he took $2,000 in campaign contributions from one individual who was opposed to the district. And the other two people gave him nothing. So you can figure it out for yourself. It's pretty clear to me that this is part of the reasoning. We have great neighborhoods in Northeast Queens. We have probably 15 potential historic districts. We are being savaged in this neighborhood. It started really in 2013 and 2014, but in the last 2 years it's accelerated. We are losing some of the best homes in our community. So it's very, very important that we take control and make this happen. And the only way that it's going to happen is if the community gets someone in office who knows the law and who knows how to make it happen. The last thing I'll say on this, very quickly, Senator Avella has proposed a bill which I stated at a press conference 1 month ago in front of the horror house that's actually a hotel being built at 33rd Avenue and 157th Street. That the first bill I will introduce is his bill, an identical bill, which is to create an architectural design district. It will not be landmarking, but it will not be an as-of-right situation. And what it will allow is it will allow people to build things that may not be exactly landmark worthy, but will be much better than what is being built today and will have tremendous community input. Councilman Vallone promised a number of people, that, including some of the leadership in this room, that he would get a home rule message so that it would pass at the city council. He never got the home rule message, and that was the end of it. So it's very important this be introduced, and I know, having spoken to other council people, because I do speak to other council people, that there are other council people interested in this particular issue, because it would give the council members and the community much more control over their own destiny, and they wouldn't have to rely only on the Landmarks Commission. And this is a big issue.
I'm going to add to this question as A and B. The question from the audience member is, what do you intend to do if elected regarding the increase in property taxes on our homes? And I'm going to add as a part B, with regards to the New York City Water Board, which charges us, and we had a water board member here at one of the Broadway Homeowners meetings, I think about a year and a half ago, where they charge you 1 fee per gallon for the water coming in and 2 times that for the water going out, even if you use your sprinklers in the summertime.
Well aware.
It goes into the drain. It doesn't go in the drain.
Okay, so let me start with the first part. So as I said, I've lived here my whole life. I bought the house next door to my parents in 2010. The house is almost 100 years old. My parents' house is almost 100 years old. And when I bought the house, my property taxes in 2010 were $3,200 a year. My property taxes this year were almost $6,000. So in 7 years, they've almost doubled. And I know this is happening throughout this community. Meanwhile, Mayor de Blasio's house, which is worth more than my house, and is in a higher density neighborhood, and he is renting it out for a crazy amount of money on top of everything else. His one-family home in Park Slope, which has approximately 2,000 square feet, he's paying $3,000 a year in property taxes. There's a problem with the Department of Finance. I support, again, Senator Avella pushed for this, and I support this, and it's another thing I will be pushing for. A complete investigation into the Department of Finance, which happened when Martha Stark was the commissioner under Bloomberg, and she was forced to resign. Okay, she was forced to resign because of the mismanagement of the assessments. So that's number one. And the second is to create a property tax cap, which every other area of the state has a property tax cap of 2%. 4% a year. We are 8% a year and 20% in 5 years, over 5 years. So it could be 8%, 8%, and 4%. This has to stop. Single-family home neighborhoods are being taxed at a much higher rate than other areas. We are subsidizing developers who are building 20-story buildings in other parts of the city, or 40-story or 50-story buildings. We are subsidizing their tax breaks. They're getting 30-year tax breaks, which they pass along to their buyers. And we are subsidizing that, and it has to end. So this is extremely important. B, water board. So, my grandfather was an engineer for the city. He actually designed a lot of the third aqueduct system of the city during the Depression and after the Depression into the 50s. So I take this very seriously because it's actually in my blood. Again, the water board has to do with its appointees. The rent board has to do with its appointees. And that all happens by the mayor. The mayor appoints these people.